Entrepreneurship. And with that, I tried to quickly update the slides, but I'm going to call on Kayvon, Dean of the Engineering Computer Science, or Interim Dean of the Engineering Computer Science Department, to tell us a little bit about the Engineering Computer Science Department, and welcome all of you.
Thanks, Thomas. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kayvon Shufazada. I'm the Interim Dean in the College of Engineering and Computer Science, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today for this webinar. I was not planning on joining today as a speaker, but given the opportunity, I'm always going to talk about how wonderful our college is and our students are. We just had an awesome pitch competition. Was it earlier this week? Last week?
Yes,
last week. Last week, where our students gave some great pitch competitions. And I want to thank the partnership that we have with the Carlson Center, as well as Clean Start, to support our students, our faculty, our staff, as well as our engineering and computer science community in this entrepreneurial space. With Global Entrepreneurship Week, we have a great opportunity to continue to push the envelope and educate our students, as well as everyone that's affiliated with the campus and with the college, about these opportunities, and help to foster additional innovation. So I appreciate you all being here, and I'm excited for the presentation. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Thomas. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much for that introduction. I did just get a note that our keynote will be arriving shortly, so I'll be looking for her in the room. So with that, I'm going to kind of take us a little bit out of order so that we can just quickly get some other stuff and get to the panel discussion very quickly. And that is, I want to highlight the Entrepreneurship Journey that a lot of you are going through this week, through Global Entrepreneurship Week. You've probably heard about all the great resources at the Carlson Center. You've probably seen a version of this startup SAC map of the ecosystem. But what I want to tell you is where Clean Start fits in this. We are a regional, we're an entrepreneurial support organization that supports entrepreneurs through connecting them with the greater clean tech hub in Sacramento. We were founded in 2005 to being a rally point for engineers and people concerned about the climate and energy efficiency. So if you have an idea around where you're taking an engineering idea to clean tech and want to know about the resources, whether it's the CEC, National Energy Research Labs, SMUD, or anything, reach out and connect with us. You can connect with us through our LinkedIn Empower Innovation, which is the CEC's. The CEC is kind of their version of Facebook, I guess. We have a YouTube channel, and you can connect with me on Calendly. I'm going to drop some links into the chat, so that way you can connect with us later. And with that, I'm actually going to now skip back, and I'm going to welcome our keynote speaker, Laura Engelway. She's currently responsible for leading the transition of SMUD's power supply to zero carbon emissions by 2030. She oversees distributed energy strategy implementation, energy trading, contracts, commodity and settlements, power generation. And in addition, she's responsible for executing this whole zero carbon plan, ensuring that SMUD reaches zero carbon by 2030 across all organizations. She is the first C-level I have heard of with the title Zero Carbon. That just shows you how serious SMUD is taking this. And I would like to welcome Laura Engelway. I know I saw her come in.
She's connecting to audio.
All right.
There we go. Oh. Okay, you're on mute, Laura. Still on mute. There we go.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I just got the link. So thank you. I missed the beginning with my time to go. I'm sorry. Apologize for that. Scrambling to get the access to the meeting room.
Well, welcome.
Good afternoon. Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity that Clean Start and Sac State has given me to really talk about the role that engineers and entrepreneurs are playing to help society move forward. And I'm also a Sac State graduate, so always enjoy reconnecting with such an important part of my personal and professional development. I'm currently with SMUD. Sorry, I missed the beginning, so I don't know if there was an intro or not. I'm currently with SMUD, the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. And for those of you that don't know, SMUD is your not-for-profit community-owned electric utility. We have about 635,000 customers. We employ over 2,200 people, and our electric rates are among the lowest in California. As SMUD's first Chief Zero Carbon Officer, I'm responsible for the delivery of our 2030 Zero Carbon Plan. And really this includes the design, construction, and procurement of energy resources and the transition of those resources to achieve zero carbon emissions in our power supply by 2030. So it's a really aggressive goal. I'm also responsible for our research and development activities, building new business partnerships that align with our strategic objectives. And SMUD's 2030 Zero Carbon Plan really commits us to removing all of our carbon emissions from our power supply by 2030. Others in the industry you'll hear talk about reaching net zero by 2035 or by 2040, but we're really talking about reducing all of our carbon emissions and really achieving that absolute zero, so meaning no offsets by the end of this decade. And it is, I believe it's the most ambitious carbon reduction plan of any large utility in the United States. And it's really not about, it's not just about getting to zero carbon. It's really, there's other benefits as well. I think the urgency really, SMUD feels this urgency to fight against climate change, but I think others are starting to feel that as well. And so we start to see others following kind of our lead. Our CEO announced the 2030 Zero Carbon Plan at the beginning of this year. And so it's been kind of a whirlwind of activities within SMUD. But my main objective today is to really plant a seed in your minds about how you can leverage your education and your skills to help advance our society. Throughout history, computer scientists, engineers, innovators, and entrepreneurs play a huge role in shaping our world. The idea that sparked the creation of SMUD actually came from an engineer in 1919 who was trying to find a solution for Sacramento's water supply. Albert Given, who was previously the city engineer for Sacramento, was in private practice in 1916 when the current city engineer that had succeeded him had co-authored a paper for the city of Sacramento that recommended the use of the Sacramento River as the main water system for, or the water supply for the Sierra, or the main water supply for Sacramento residents. And the paper explored 3 different options. So they were looking at a filtered water system from the Sacramento River, well water systems, and then water also from the Sierra Nevadas. The report considered the mountain water from the Sierra Nevadas to be too expensive, and the report really favored the filtered water system from the Sacramento River, with price really being the primary factor. In 1916, that report also noted obstacles with using obviously the mountain water. But in April of 1919, Albert Given and a group of fellow engineers, in response to the direction, drafted an unofficial report for the city of Sacramento. And it was titled Mountain Supply for City of Sacramento, California. And they noted in their report that the rapid upstream irrigation development along the Sac River meant that eventually the only water that was going to flow down as far down into Sacramento City would be seepage and water return from the irrigated fields. And their report saw beyond the challenges associated with the water from the Sierra Nevadas, and they used engineering, innovation, and ingenuity to find a solution. Albert Given personally surveyed, you think about that in the 1919, Albert Given personally surveyed the area that is known as the Crystal Basin Recreational Area today to identify where the reservoirs would be located to store and capture water. In regards to funding, the report noted that the necessary funds might be obtained by the organization of the city into a district under provisions of law creating municipal water districts and municipal lighting districts, and acknowledged that the water could also be used to generate electricity. And that's the idea that created SMUD. So when SMUD was first formed in 1923, Given became SMUD's first chief engineer and general manager, and he brought with him the idea for our Upper American River project, and we call that the UARP. The UARP is an emission-free systems of dams, reservoirs, and powerhouses, and it helps SMUD to meet high demand for electricity in summer months. Again, many of those sites that were surveyed by Albert Given in 1919 became the locations for those reservoirs. The vision for the UARP and SMUD began as a means of providing clean water for Sacramento residents that could be funded through the development of hydroelectricity. Today, the American River is a critical source for Sacramento's water system and surrounding communities, and the UARP is a 688 hydroelectric system and is today SMUD's most reliable and economical energy source. So SMUD was founded by an engineer upon innovation, ingenuity for the betterment of our community. And as SMUD moves forward in our quest for decarbonization, we're once again building upon that history. SMUD's 2030 plan puts us on the front lines in the fight against climate change, but the urgency to decarbonize our energy mix goes beyond climate change. Decarbonization will greatly improve Sacramento's air quality. So we're ranked 6th most polluted city in the country based on days of unhealthy and unsafe levels of air pollution. In Sacramento, childhood asthma rates are 22% higher than the national average, so we can't afford to waste any more time. We owe it to our children, our grandchildren, our community, our environment. We owe it to ourselves to seize the moment. We estimate that we can get to 90% of the way to zero carbon using existing proven technologies, but it'll be that last 10% that will be the hardest to obtain. Decarbonization is today's challenge, and this challenge offers a world of opportunity for bright minds like yours. To achieve full decarbonization, a report from the International Energy Agency identifies several key new technologies, including electrification transportation, biofuels, green hydrogen, and carbon capture and storage, artificial photosynthesis, hydrogen-fueled airplanes. There's no telling what technological progress will be made in the next 10 years. Throughout history, engineers and entrepreneurs have played a unique role in building a better, stronger society. They use knowledge that they have within a specific industry to help find solutions to complex problems, just like Albert Given. In fact, I have no doubt that through innovation, we're going to find solutions that allow us to decarbonize our energy supply by 2030, and we're going to meet that goal. But ultimately, 2030 is going to come and go, but the contributions that engineering and innovation have on society will continue long into the future. And I would argue that the climate crisis is a defining challenge of our time. There's a need for urgency and there's a need for action. As students in engineering, you're being trained to solve complex technical problems. As innovators, you'll need to see beyond what's already been proven. If you stretch your imagination, you can help answer the call. And 100 years from now, someone will be telling your story. So thank you for having me here today, and I urge you to join the charge.
Thank you very much. Round of applause. That was very, very inspiring. Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate it. And sorry for any confusion on getting in here.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to jump to our panel discussion, building the future and moving from engineer to entrepreneur. Engineering, we're going to talk about engineering and entrepreneurship as a mix. How do you build a career out of this? And a whole bunch of stuff. We have an exciting panel of engineers. If you have questions, submit them into the chat and we'll make sure that we address them in a timely manner. And with that, I'm going to welcome our panel led by Gary Simon. Our panel consists of Uzoma Okoro, founder and president of EcoAlpha and Engineering Services, Savita Faruqi, founder and CEO of SimSoft Solutions, and Brandon Ortiz, embedded systems consultant and co-founder of SAC Dance Lab. I'm going to put their LinkedIns in the chat so you can make sure that you connect with them. And now I'm going to highlight them and Gary Simon and let him take the panel away.
Thank you, Thomas, and a special welcome to all the students at Sac State that are joining us, because you're probably wondering, once you graduate, what are you going to do? And the world looks different now than it did certainly when I graduated. Now that's ancient history, maybe not as old as Albert Given's, but I got out of college in 1970, and the whole game coming as a senior at that point was interview with a bunch of companies and, look for somebody you could spend at least 20 years with and get a nice secure job. Well, that isn't the way people are looking at things today, and there's a lot more opportunities. In my case, I never did hold a job for 20 years. There were too many more interesting things to do, but I had no training in entrepreneurship, had not even thought of it. And in many cases, things were just thrust upon me, where I had to step in and take over and lead a new company, because it was the only way that things were going to get done. So each of our panelists today have had an interesting journey. They may not have thought of entrepreneurship as a way to use their talents going forward. And what I would like to do is ask each of them to introduce themselves and say a little bit about, what did you think you were going to be doing when you were a senior in college, about to graduate, and what has your journey been like to take you to where you are right now? So let's start with Azoma and give us a bit of your story. You've certainly had some variety in your career. So tell us about that. Jerry, when you were a senior in college, what do you think you were going to do versus what you're doing now, Azoma?
Gary, thank you for the gracious invite and for making me go first. So give me kind of 30,000 for you and then dig into your question. So when I was a senior in college, I was eager to get out and start working. So if I'm being perfectly honest. So I got my bachelor's degree. I'm a mechanical engineer focused on fluid thermodynamics. And my first job when I got out actually helped the trajectory of what now is the national business that my wife and I own. It was a commissioning agent for mission critical applications. So I was commissioning data centers and hospital and other mission critical installations throughout the country. And for the students on the line who are maybe asking what is commissioning exactly, it's going into different building types, whether it be hospitals, data centers, high-rise buildings, arenas, and stadiums, and making sure that the equipment at those places works per the design specs. So there's always going to be a big gap between design and implementation and operations, and commissioning really helps to fill that gap, which actually very much mirrors the world of entrepreneurship. There's always going to be a gap between the plan and what actually happens. So as an entrepreneur, your job really is going to be to make mistakes quickly. And then, so you have to really kind of go down the path that you think is right, course correct quickly, extrapolate the reason why things didn't work, and really apply that to the next iteration of whatever you're doing very quickly if you're going to be successful. So did that answer your question, Gary?
Yeah, but you're being modest. You had a big role in doing the installations for the Golden One Center. And how did that come about?
I did. That was kind of catapulted. So I, again, started my career as a commissioning agent. That led me to the stationary engineering side of the house. And stationary engineers, again, take care of these multiple different facility types throughout the country. And when the opportunity came up by this time I was about the director of engineering level for a large multinational firm. So I went to become the director of engineering for the Golden One Center Arena. So that was 3 years and a few gray hairs of my life, but basically oversaw the entire construction, commissioning, operation of the Sacramento Kings Arena, and managed the whole team and staffing from everything from the construction to its first few years of operation. And then, those really large scale projects come along very rarely. So if you have the opportunity, whether it's a kind of a capital works project for a large municipality, state, federal organization, or a large private entity, really jump on those if you can, because the experience and the connections that you will gather from that will really help catapult your entrepreneurship journey. Subsequently, to being the director of engineering and starting up the arena, my wife and I combined forces. She's an environmental scientist and began Eco Alpha, going on maybe 9 or 10 years now. And it's been a heck of a ride. So Eco Alpha is a full service environmental engineering service firm. We have 3 divisions: environmental engineering and training. The main vein which we provide is we hire and employ stationary engineers to take care of Class A commercial properties. So the men and women in the field taking care of arenas, hospitals, data centers, high-rise buildings around the country is kind of our bread and butter, if you will. So that's a long way to the journey. I don't want to take all the air from all the other speakers, but
Well, but it's sort of a typical thing that you probably had no idea that's what you were going to be doing by this time in your career, but you know, it's worked out. And I've never seen much gray hair on your head. I'm impressed with anyone that has hair on their head. So thank you very much for that. Let's turn to Savita. And what were you thinking about as a senior about to graduate, and what was your journey to where you are now like?
Yeah, so Gary, like you mentioned, I did not have much clarity either. So in the senior year of college, basically one interesting thing did happen though for me, which is I could work on a video game, creating a video game that we displayed in a school fair. And creating that video game meant that this was really, you can see my gray hair. So way back, it was using a ZX Spectrum, a little tiny computer hooked onto the TV, and pixel by pixel creating the game. And that got me interested in computers. My bachelor's was in electronics and electronics and telecommunications engineering. And with this game, I got interested in computer science, but I didn't know what I was going to do with that interest. So I joined a job after my graduation, but then slowly discovered that I do want to continue computer science. And so I did my master's in computer science and did another job with a multinational company. It was way late, like in after we moved to the United States. This was all back in India. So after we moved to the United States, after a few years, that's when I decided that, okay, we've done many interesting things, but I want to do something on my own. And that is where my journey of entrepreneurship started. So, but it, you know, I would say that it cooks in your head slowly but surely. If that's what is your passion, it just, when the time is right, when the opportunity is right, you do jump on that. So.
Well, you know, interesting, because you were in India when a lot of this was happening, and now we view India as sort of being a hotbed of entrepreneurship, that's a very common path.
Correct.
When you were going through this, was it also a common path?
Not at all. In fact, being safe was paramount. So my father's generation, like you said, Gary, that get a job and stick with it until you retire, that was the norm. So while I was coming out of college, that was still the case. So just my parents would say that preferably a government job, and then you don't worry about anything at all. So yeah, that was a transition. And today it is absolutely opposite. And entrepreneurship is every child, every student thinks about it from the get-go.
So Savita was a rebel. That's what she just told us. I'll always remember when I told my dad what I was thinking about doing, which was not going to get a 35-year job. His first question was, well, how many years are you going to be on my payroll before you earn real money? So quickly got off of his payroll, but an interesting reaction. So let's turn to Brandon. And of course, I think everybody's fascinated. You're an engineer, but one of your businesses is a dance lab.
Yeah.
Right now. So you've had a couple changes in direction. What were you thinking about when you were a senior, and what's your path been like going forward?
So I graduated from Sac State with a bachelor's in computer engineering in 2015, but I've been working as a freelance embedded systems developer since 2014. So as a senior, I was excited to make new connections and kind of be done with school and have more time to do consulting. But that really started when I got my mechatronics certificate from Sierra College in 2010. And that led me to a job with an elevator controls company that gave me a lot of responsibilities because they were kind of a smaller company, and I worked my way up and was often in the situation where people were referring to me as an engineer, but I hadn't completed my degree yet. And that was fun. And then just kind of going to school while being in the field and in the industry kind of tied together a lot of concepts for me, and I think provided a unique perspective. And then about a year before I graduated, I started developing some software that was more system level, and I saw applications beyond an elevator control system. So I negotiated with my employer to start working freelance and develop this software while retaining the IP and giving them a license to it. So my journey was really about controlling the IP and having the potential to reuse some of my software work for other applications, as well as working remotely. After I graduated from Sac State, I spent a little bit of time in Central America and kind of just hung out and worked on firmware, and did that for about 6 months. And then at my level of development is usually with custom circuit boards and custom hardware design. So acquiring some of the stuff that I needed to work effectively in Central America was challenging. So I moved back to Sacramento and started looking for a space to lease to do some digital fabrication as well, because I was really interested in applying the embedded software in products and prototypes that I was developing, and was looking for a warehouse around 1,000 to 1,500 square feet to house some CNC tools. I had a 4x8 CNC router that I wanted to purchase, and my partner and fiance at the time, and we're getting married in 10 days. So really excited about that. And everything's just kind of crunching down in November. She was also looking to start hosting dance classes, and we found a warehouse that was a little too large for just me, and came up with the idea that she would run her dance business in the back of the warehouse. And that lasted for about 2 years before she grew enough to move out. And I still operate that space now as 2,000 square feet of digital fabrication and engineering space. And through that time, I realized that selling and licensing software is a lot trickier than finding someone who has a problem and just going and solving it, because you have to prove that your software is effective. You need to document it. And there's a lot of things other than what I understood at the time of just implementation to make it useful. But that gave me a lot of practice and a good library of reusable software modules. And in the last 2 years or so, I've been connected with Terzo Power Systems, who's developing innovative motor control systems and hydraulic pumps, and they needed assistance with motor control, which is something I've integrated with a lot of motor controllers, but I've never gone inside the motor control. So it was a really good learning opportunity, and they continue to improve their product and continue to send more work my way. And we have a really decent relationship. And I have a dream of kind of blending all of our skills together and eventually releasing an elevator controller that uses their motor control systems as an integrated package, which is something that's not available in the industry right now in the US widespread, as a combined elevator controller and motor drive. So everything is still kind of in motion for me right now, and definitely not incredibly stable as far as like finances. Don't have like income that I can count on. So it's been a little bit challenging looking for work. And just for a while, I was making signs or just doing things with the digital fabrication tools that were outside of putting embedded systems in them. But it gave me a lot of experience working with customers and understanding business. And I think that was about 5 years ago. And now I'm ready to start applying all these skills in more professional aspects.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your pending nuptials. And I'm sure that's very exciting for you, and you're really hoping that gets over soon.
Yeah.
They get back to normal. But of the 3 speakers we have on the panel today, you made the jump to working on your own immediately. So when did you get your degree from Sac State?
So I graduated from Sac State in 2015. And 2014, I actually was going to drop out and just become a freelance worker. And I had, I don't know, 2 semesters left. And luckily, I talked to enough friends and family that said, that's a bad idea. As much as you want to go in all in right now, you've made it this far, you should just finish. But I spent about a year as a freelancer while in school. And I'm actually, this semester I started the Masters of Business Analytics program here at Sac State as well. So I'm once again a student, and I feel like, again, I'm coming in with a little bit of experience operating the business and acquiring a lot of data to where I can take problems and things I'm going through as a professional and kind of use school as to kind of augment and tie together some loose ends of what I need to do.
Well, that's an interesting way to go about it. And going back to school and getting some more training obviously has been beneficial for you. If you look back on how you did it and how things came up, what advice would you have to the students today about, if you had it to do over again, what would you do differently? Or what's the most important choice that you made that you think has contributed to your success so far?
I think the initial idea that I could license software and go down a Linus Torvalds route or something to where I was at the heart of the software system and really able to find a lot of uses for it, I probably should have not gone so aggressively with that idea and paid more attention to what the business needs were around the community, because I was kind of in a bubble developing this system just with my conceptual knowledge of elevator systems. So really just staying aware of what the business needs are and not getting too caught up in a problem you've worked on before and trying to over optimize the solution for that.
All right, well, let's put that same question to Azoma. If you had to do it over again, looking back, what was your best decision going forward, and what's maybe something you'd do differently?
Great question. The best decision moving forward was teaming up with my wife, because you got to have somebody that complements the things that you're deficient in. If you're honest with yourself as an entrepreneur, you're going to be deficient in some things. You can't do everything well. So you have to identify the things you don't do well and either supplement those things by getting really good at them yourself or partnering with people that are really good with them, but really understanding that. Some of the guideposts I would give as far as, and these are more questions that every individual entrepreneur, especially coming out of school, is going to have to ask for themselves, are one, set deadlines for yourself, set hardcore deadlines for yourself, because if not, things are just going to continue to coast into foreverness. So whether that's you're developing, software, hardware, whether you're responding to a request for proposal from a potential client, whatever it is, set hardcore deadlines for yourself, stick to them, and don't waver on that. That's something I really had. That's really hard starting out, and master your niche. Listening to Brandon talk, he's taking me down that memory lane here. Is your story as a student is going to be custom. We're all guideposts here to kind of help guide you on your journey, but your journey is going to be very niche to you. So master your craft. If you're looking at entrepreneurship, the problem with entrepreneurs is that they're good at a lot of things, and when you're good at a lot of things, you get a little scatterbrained and you try everything. And if you're doing, the old adage that if you're doing everything, you're not doing anything well. So you have to almost rein yourself in and say, okay, this is my game. I'm playing, you might be good at, baseball, football, track, but you got to pick one if you're going to be exemplary at it. And you got to be exemplary if you're going to be an entrepreneur going against larger companies. So focus on your niche, set really hard deadlines. And then one thing I wish somebody would have told me early on was, even when you're just by yourself, or if you have one employee, or if you got one client and it's part-time, manage your books as if you're running a Fortune 500 company. That will help you down the stream and really allow you to make the different level of leaps when you're going. So whether that's, if it's a $12 invoice that you're sending one customer for a Tuesday, send it out professionally. Make sure it has all the terms and conditions there. Understand your invoice and your taxes, your bookkeeping, your insurance. It doesn't matter if it's $10. Manage it as if you're managing a $10 million portfolio. So those are some of the guideposts.
Well, that's really important. And so many people starting out that don't have the experience. Generally what they consider to be the books of their organization is a shoebox filled with receipts and unpaid invoices and everything else. But that isn't the way that you're going to find out whether you're good at building a business. Did you have any classes, Zoma, in entrepreneurship or building a business before you graduated, or has it all just been on the job training?
A little bit of both. I think for all of us, I think the variations of engineering help you get the problem solving aspect of things down, help you kind of reverse engineer from an end goal and say, okay, this is where I want to end up, and then reverse engineer from where you are to how you get there. I started off fixing HVAC units to help me pay my way through school. And like you said, whether it was a written on paper invoice and I had to hand that to a property management firm, that's kind of where you get the marketing. And okay, if it makes sense to me, it's going to make sense to somebody else. And that's how you sell a product or a service. But then again, teaming up with my wife really helped in really supplementing the things that I was good at and being able to pair with somebody who was good at more the financial side. And, if I'm the business development operations person, pairing with somebody who's really good with the the financial operation, the taxes, the insurance, and the business. So that's what I would say. Again, really understand that there's the operations and business side for whatever you're doing, and there's the financial one, and you got to have both of those. And it's sometimes hard to have that all centered in one person. You can do it definitely, but take both of those aspects very seriously, or find avenues and supplements and people and a team to put together to help if you don't have those skill sets.
Well, I know both you and Melanie quite well, and I would say you're right. You found the perfect complementary partner for building a business. So you're very lucky.
I'm married up.
Yeah, there you go. You're married up. And Savita, looking back on choices you made, what advice would you have, both good and bad, things you would have wished you done better, or things that were really very important to you?
I think it's so good to meet Zomo, because I also married up, to be honest. So me and my husband, we founded this company, and it's that those complementary skills made a difference. But going back to the core of it, like Uzomo was mentioning, strategy is knowing what not to do, because as entrepreneurs, you are interested in so many things, and you do want to focus and do one thing, go deep, rather than 100 things in a shallow manner. So for me, and I don't know if I speak for everyone or not, but at least me and my friends in engineering college, each one of us, they were introverts, focused on the engineering piece of it, the subject matter. And to be honest, for me, it was very, very difficult early on to even pick up a phone and talk to people. So that is something, I just feel that if something had to change, maybe that training to a little bit more open and reach out to people, trust more early on. I think that is something I would change. That, but at the same time, hindsight 2020, like there's nothing wrong. It was just a journey that I had to go through. Go from that, changing yourself from being completely introvert to reaching out and understanding the needs and being empathetic with your customer, and so on and so forth. So maybe those things come naturally to some. And for people like me, we have to develop that skill. But that is one of the most critical skills, that engineering with what is the problem you're solving, who are you helping, understanding of that is, to me, critical.
Well, very interesting too, what you've said about dealing with other people, because college inevitably is all about individual performance. You're getting grades, you're seeing whether you're making the cut, etc. But when you're thrown out into the world, whether it's a job or starting your own business, a lot of it is learning how to work in teams and getting the best out of the people around you.
Right.
Did you have any training in that, or was that all just something you had to pick up by experience?
it was through experience, and it just, again, the skill of observation is what helps us. So noticing what is going on with yourself and others, but more so with yourself, because you are in a situation that doesn't go the way you want. What goes through your heads and how do you respond to it? Can you pick yourself up? Those are the skills. If you have those, that's what I think helps us to push through difficult times. And I promise you that as entrepreneurs, there will be difficult times. But once you are past it, which you obviously will be, I mean, that also I can promise you, then you know that you have that strength to, overcome whatever comes your way.
Well, I mean, another critical thing, certainly in my own experience, solo performer, actually in a lab, and the only team experience I had is when we wrote papers together. And then shifting over, leadership was just not something I knew much about. Certainly made plenty of mistakes, and getting the best out of people. Those were hard things to come up with, and learning them by hard knocks.
Yeah.
One way to do it. And I know in the College of Engineering Computer Science there, the senior projects do tend to want to put people in teams, so they get a little bit of that. But that leadership skill and learning how to deal with people has been, a critical one. So Azoma, could you comment on that? Because you now,
sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, just one comment I would make there, because again, this wasn't when I started, but as I grew into the building the company and so on, what I realized is that, and I also at the same time started gardening. And what I realized is that every plant in garden is unique. They have their needs, so much water they need, so much sun they need. These are the nutrients they need. If you make that environment available for that plant, the plant flourishes. Leadership to me ultimately became that for each individual, can I provide that environment for them to flourish? And that is the job of a leader, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you've nailed it there. Azoma, what's your experience been in acquiring leadership skills, and any advice you have for the students in the audience?
A few points, and I'm gonna use both Brandon and Savita as kind of, because I'm loving what I'm hearing as well from them. Savita mentioned a lot of engineers can be introverts, and she mentioned the practical application of the knowledge that we're doing. So if you think of this, even us talking here as lecture, you got to take all this information and go apply it in the laboratory. So, I had a friend that wanted to start up a business just a few years ago, and they saw the way eBuff was going. One of the first things I did, I told him, okay, meet me at the office at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, I said, open up your phone. And he opened it up. I said, how many contacts do you have? He looked there, he had 380 contacts. I said, okay, we're going to call every single one of those today and ask them, do you have a connection in this industry that he was looking for in logistics? And I mean, he just turned flush. It was absolutely a terrifying concept to have to actually, do it now, do it rapidly, to actually have to apply that and put yourself out there. So to Savita's point, take this information, and even if it's uncomfortable for you, you have to battle test it. So to dovetail that into your leadership question, there's a lot of things that make a good leader. There's good managers, and then there's good leaders. Some people can combine both, but I think a good leader, you have to, it's been said that you have to be able to make people see a vision that they couldn't see without you, and then convince them it's worth the sacrifice to get there. And those are real skill sets, especially when you talk about employing people, especially, you're asking people to put their livelihood, their time, their energy, their insurance, and very brass tacks things in your hand, in your care. And to do that, you have to have a lot of trust. So it all circles back to mastering your niche, setting deadlines, being able to sell whatever product or service it is that you're providing, and then amassing enough trust and creating enough value in that space to where you can go out and say, okay, join my team. So that what makes you a good leader isn't necessarily telling everybody what to do. It's really doing the extra work so that they can see it and then they trust you to make the decisions for the group. So that's how I would define leadership.
Well, Brandon, your comments on this, I mean, what both Uzoma and Savita have said is basically beyond being an excellent engineer, there are things you have to learn about people and dealing with teams and even learn about yourself that you're either going to have to pick up on the fly or, if there's other continuing education such as you have done, pick it up along the way. But there's another dimension to developing oneself if you're going to be out trying to do things, leading a business, creating a business on their own. How did you go about acquiring teamwork skills and leadership skills, and what advice would you have on that?
Yeah, I would say I'm still real early in my development of some of those skills, especially being deeper in the software world. Typically, I've worked on a smaller team, usually someone working in hardware on a custom circuit board, and then someone who understands the application a little bit better than me and can define the requirements. And I've typically led the software development that bridges those two together, that gets the hardware to meet the requirements of the application. And it's usually been a small team of developers I've worked with. So as far as hiring or having to have a lot of leadership skills with other people is not something I've had to stress out on too much lately. But as I continue development and wanting to do more application level stuff with my software skills, I think that's a skill that I'm just constantly going to be developing. And I listen to Uzuma and Uzuma, and definitely taking some things in. So really great to be hearing these things.
Yeah, you take that step beyond graduation. There's a lot that's unknown, leads to a lot of anxieties for students. Yeah. So hopefully this is being helpful. But to come back to Savita on, how do you think people would best go about developing their leadership skills and teamwork talents before they get too far down on their career?
So actually, I would go back to that point, is knowing yourself is very, very important. And that is what, when you are within a team, and just for an example, that there are two different points of view and there is disagreement between you and someone else, how do you address that? That is working with the team. But that requires empathy, understanding yourself, where you're coming from, where the other person is coming from, and working out those conflicts, working together to come to decisions that are going to be beneficial to maybe your customer or in general for greater good. So what is that aligns you, and what are the things where you disagree, and it's okay to disagree? So I think to me, it is really the human nature, understanding yourself, understanding others around you is important. And then for leadership, again, like Uzoma mentioned, there are those two pieces, which is having the vision. If you have the clarity of vision, then only you can lead. Without that clarity yourself, it just is not possible. So that clarity of vision that you have, that is something, again, it will take probably time in some cases. You work through it, and once you have it, that's when you're ready to lead. If that is not the case, and you want others' input to develop that vision, that is another possibility. And in that case, we always followed this particular slogan, that creation through collaboration. And I was talking to a friend, and the friend said, oh, but collaboration happens when there is excellence. Now, excellence doesn't mean that excellence in the same area. Excellence is, Gary is excellent in this particular area, Uzomo in this, Brandon in this. And because we are excellent in our own areas, we are not afraid to reach out and ask for help in those areas that we are not experts in. And together we can create the vision. So either you have that, that is the difference between startups and little established organizations. In startup, that vision is your own. You start with that idea. But once you build a little bit more, then that vision can be built together and you move forward.
All right, well, whole long list of things to be learned if you're going to step out on your own. It's very common to go out into a regular job at some point and sort of get your skills certified and get some experience before you take that leap. But entrepreneurship is a skill that can be acquired, and people need to learn more about it if they're interested in going that route. There's lots of mistakes. Most entrepreneurs, at least in their first couple startups, fail, and they usually fail for the same reasons. So learning about what those failure points are and how to avoid them, very important. That's why you have things like the Carlson Center to help out there. Let's open the lines, Thomas, to the audience and see if there's any questions they would like to pose to our panel members here, because they've had a lot of the experience that probably gives them some anxiety right now about what happens next. So let's see if there are people who can raise their hands or unmute their lines and see if we can get some questions.
I have a quick question that might, for them. And that's a lot of you guys started your career, working on projects or working in companies. At what point did it you go, hey, wait, I'm an entrepreneur and all of this is kind of riding on me? Was there kind of an epiphany or realization at that point? Or was it just, how did that kind of work?
So I'll answer. I think that in 2014, I owned a house that I purchased while I was an engineer or working for the elevator controls company, and was on a more structured life path. And then I had the idea to develop my own software, and I sold it for in order to have the cash to start the business. So I think for me, it's just been surviving and having the money to continue to feed myself and pay for the lease is where I felt the most responsibility, and that continues to drive me today.
I'll mirror a little bit what Brandon said. So I actually, when I was working for the large conglomerate, I actually kind of had scratched the top of the corporate ceiling. So I was doing well financially, and it was a very terrifying thought to have to hand in, at this time I'm married, I have kids, I have mortgage and everything, and to hand in a resignation and to move from certainty to uncertainty with regards to check is a terrifying thing. So you have to have something bigger than the paycheck that's driving you. You have to really, and that's a tough question to answer, but you have to answer for yourself. Do I really want that? And you find out really quickly that being an entrepreneur, while intelligence and connections and those things help, it really becomes a measure of your ability to stomach risk. And if you're not good at stomaching risk and still putting on a smile, then that's a question that you'll answer for yourself, I think, very early in the process.
Yeah, again, I concur. For me, I kind of distinctly remember the days when we hired our first employees and their paycheck. You're responsible for that. That realization, I mean, that is, because on your own, when you're on your own, if you don't get paid, you kind of know that you will figure out a way. But when it is someone else dependent on you, that's when it became real for me.
Yeah, no, certainly understand that. Handling money is also one of those skills that you need to develop. And a lot of people don't understand some of the things that people in the finance world want to deal with: a balance sheet, an income statement, spreadsheets, cash flow. Ozoma, where did you pick that up? Or is it, I know that Melanie brings a lot of that to the table, but where should people pick up that kind of skill?
It's funny. I actually picked it up in college, probably my sophomore or junior year, when I was applying for the grants and everything, and they didn't go far enough, and I needed book money, so I had to go out there and, like I said, fix local HVAC units, and then okay, well, I got to get my money, so I got to write an invoice. Google, what does an invoice look like? And you use a template, and then you email it to them, and then okay, well, how long do I have to wait for this to come back? Oh, I probably should have put a date on there when it's due. So you learn by trial and error. So I would say, from a very practical application, you can practice wherever you're at. If we're going back to the leadership discussion, if you want to see if you have the leadership skills to be an entrepreneur, you're a senior, you guys are working on your senior project, maybe 3 of you, if everybody else is working till 6, maybe you work till 8. If there's a spreadsheet that needs to be put together, everybody's already working on everything, you just go ahead and put it together. So, and once you start to tally up those extra work items, you kind of de facto become the leader. And then when there's a decision to be made, the others, because of the work that you put in, will naturally trust you to kind of make that decision. So that's what I would say. I would say take all this wonderful information you're getting and then practice it exactly where you're at.
So Brandon, what's your experience in sort of learning the financial, the money side of the business as you've gone along?
So yeah, starting with an initial large sum of money, keeping track of everything wasn't my highest priority. As an engineer, is more about acquiring the tools. So there were definitely some learning experiences early on about how to account for everything. And to this day, as me and my partner are involved in different types of business operations, whether it's dance classes, performances at theaters, studio rentals, we're just every day learning different ways about how to account for the money coming in and how to connect it to the money going out, and really just make sure that everything's lining up. But we're still in the early part of our journey, and there's still a lot that we have to learn.
Yeah, that's probably true of a lot of people, that it is something you learn along the way, and hopefully you don't make too many mistakes at that. As I've said, just like getting a good lawyer and setting up a business is important, at least talking to an accountant is pretty important, because there are things that will eventually lead you to want to get a loan from a bank or get an investor in. And if they see that you're doing your finances well, keeping your books well, it helps a lot.
And I'll just dovetail off of that a little bit, Gary. Again, even if it's just you're in a dorm room, you're working 2 hours for somebody, act like you're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company and run it. To Gary's point, set up that bank account, make sure you have your invoices right, make sure you can understand and have a working knowledge of what taxes may be, and your liability, your insurances, run that, really set up that organization, because you can cut and paste that at every step of the way. It's going to change in the gravitas and the importance and the price points on things, but the process, by and large, is going to stay the same. But I would say take that to heart. No matter where you're at, the financial part, really manage that as stringently as you can.
Exactly. Well, anybody who wants to drop a question in the chat, we can deal with it there, or use the little raised hand button under reactions.
We did
or just
get a
unmute
question.
yourself, and let's come back to Thomas for a question.
Oh, we did get a question about professional engineering licenses. So let's kind of expand that. What certifications, licenses, additional education did you get that might have helped you on your entrepreneurial journey or helped you be more successful?
I don't have a professional engineering license. For the most part, I've self-studied from embedded systems, open source code, and things like that. I'm not too aware of licenses for the embedded systems development. So that's not something I've done a lot of research into so much as just having relevant skills for the demands out there.
Savita, have you found you needed certificates or some validation out there for what you're doing?
So basically the degree, the diploma that you have, that is most of the times is sufficient. If you're working with one particular system and you need to acquire skills and credibility, then say, for example, if it is a software development and that is using Salesforce as a platform, then having that certification for that product might be useful. But it is not a generic professional license per se, but whatever helps with your business.
So was if you got electrical engineering degree, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, seems like certificates are more important there, because if you get the California PE license, sort of what's your experience in that regard, Izoma?
Yeah, not in our sorry.
Not in software.
No, please, go ahead,
not in software.
No, and to some degree, it depends on the niche you're in, but not necessarily. It depends. That's a loaded question. So I did not go after my PE. I do have my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, but we do work with PEs in case we need to stamp drawings for certain things, and we have PEs on staff that we work with. But particularly for my path, it was more of really understanding what the clients need. A lot of times you ask a small business, who exactly is your client? And you get different variations of an answer, but understanding the client need, understanding the business need, being able to fill that niche and void, and taking your finances seriously, and being able to present. If you're in the construction field and you need certain licenses, yes, a lot of times for entrepreneurs, you have to be wary of the cash intensiveness of certain industries that require those certifications, like if you're starting up a new construction firm or things like that. But for me particularly, no, the PE wasn't a requirement for the path to entrepreneurship for me.
All right, thank you. Well, Thomas, do we see any more questions out there? Anything you want to ask?
I don't see any questions. I'll give people a couple seconds if they want to type one in there.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much to our panelists, Brandon Ortiz, Izoma Okoro, Savita Faruqi. It's interesting, the spread of experience across the three of you and the experience you've had. I think it's been very enlightening. I've learned a lot out of it. I hope our audience has. And, we wish you all the greatest success. And I think, one way or another, you're all connected with Sac State. And so, very clearly, you've all made a great success out of your degree. You've gotten past the anxiety stage, at least the initial one, and you're off and running. So, Thomas, let's see what Kevon might want to add, or Java, and then go to Cameron for a wrap up on the Carlson Center. But round of applause for our panelists on such a good program today, Global Entrepreneurship Week. And of course, there are many more things that are coming up later today, tomorrow, and Friday. So be watching that page from the Carlson Center as to what else is available. So Thomas, back to you.
All right. I want to thank everyone who helped put this on. I want to thank Zoma, Savita, and Brandon for joining us on the panel. Thank you, Gary, for helping us by managing it. And I also want to highlight, we did just have the pitch competition at ECS, the Engineering College or Engineering Computer Science College. And the winners of it were Swift Waiver, Buzzley, and Fire Aggression. And I want to highlight both Swift Waiver and Buzzley. They connected really early throughout the past year with the Carlson Center. So if you have an idea and you're trying to figure out where to start, I always say, come talk to us at Clean Start, but the Carlson Center is a huge resource there on campus, can really help you with your pitch and put together a really professional pitch. I want to thank everyone, the Sac State Engineering Computer Science Department, the Carlson Center, and encourage everyone to look at Global Entrepreneurship Week this week and go to some of the other ones. After this, there's a circular economy coming up that I'm excited about. I know Jawa said he's excited about it. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Cameron for any last minute announcements that he may have.
Just want to conclude with a thank you to all the speakers. I enjoyed hearing your stories, and I know it left an impact on all our students as well as faculty and community members that are here. And you are right, coming up right at 2 o'clock, we do have our next event for Global Entrepreneurship Week. So we'll be having a panel discussion on the circular economy. So we hope you'll join us then. So feel free to follow that link that Thomas shared in the chat, and that'd be a great way to learn more about that circular economy. So we hope to see you then, and we have 3 additional events after that this afternoon alone. So plug into the rest of the week, and thank you to all the partnerships, Clean Start and the College of Engineering and Computer Science. We appreciate all the collaboration, and we hope to see you at future events. So come see us at the Carlson Center. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
So Cam, when's your next toolkit series for entrepreneurs coming up? Do you know?
I will urge you to sign up for our weekly newsletter, because that's where you'll see it. My guess is going to be likely after the new year.
All right.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great discussion.